Alright, this video is going to show you how to add and subtract in scientific notation. Number 1 here is 2 times 10 to the third plus 3 times 10 to the fourth. To add and subtract in scientific notation, the exponents must be the same. Since this is a 3 and this is a 4, you basically have to change this 3 to a 4 or change this 4 to a 3. I'm going to take this 3 and actually change it. Let me erase this right here. And actually change it so it's a 4. To do that, I have to add 1 to it. So now it becomes a 4. So I rewrite this. Since I made this side larger, I'm going to put an L there. I have to make this side smaller. So instead of 2, I have a decimal after the 2. I'm going to move that decimal only once to the left because I have to make it smaller because I made this side larger. So now instead of 2, it's 0.2. And it's times 10 to the 3 plus first power, which is fourth power. And that's exactly what I wanted. Then I rewrite 3 plus 10 to the fourth power. I just bring it down because, again, I wanted the exponents the same, and I have them the same. Now I could add 0.2 and 3. So 0.2 plus 3 is 3.2 times, and you keep what is the same. It is 10 to the fourth power. And that is how you do it. The second one, I go to look to subtract in scientific notation. I cannot because the exponents are not the same. I'm going to take this 5 and add 1 to it to make it a 6. Now I could have made the 6 a 5 by subtracting 1 from it, but I didn't do that. So this is 5 plus 1, and that means I made this side larger. Now I have to take this 3.4 and make it smaller. To do that, I have to move this decimal over 1 to the left to make it smaller. And it now becomes 0.34. So this is 7.2 times 10 to the sixth, and nothing changes with that. Just copy it down. That's 10 to the sixth, by the way. And I put parentheses around it just to that. And now instead of 3.4, it's 0.34. And instead of 10 to the fifth, I added 1 to it, and it's 10 to the sixth. Now, to add, now you could subtract these two numbers. So you have 7.2 minus 0.34. So 7.2 minus you line up the decimals, 0.34. I'm just going to add a 0 there just to kind of make it a little bit easier for me to subtract. I'm going to make that a 10. I'm going to borrow, and then this has to become an 11. It comes a 1, and then you borrow from this, which becomes a 6. This is without a calculator. 10 minus 4 is 6. 11 minus 3 is 8. Bring the decimal down because it's all lined up. This was 7. Now it became a 6. So it is 6.86. So you have 6.86 times 10 to the sixth power. And yes, the first two are numbers that are in scientific notation. These are in scientific notation, in scientific notation. And these are in scientific notations because this is a number between 1 and 10. So is this. All right, so number 3, again, We're going to look to add here. We're looking at the exponents first. They are not the same. I'm going to make this a 3 by adding 1 to it. But since I made this larger, I have to make this smaller. So to make this smaller, you have to move this decimal one place to the left. It becomes 0.43 instead of 4.3. And it's times, that's a weird looking time multiplication symbol, 10 to the third. Okay. And this is addition, so I'm going to keep that plus. And I'm going to keep this the same also. And that's a 3. Now the exponents are the same. I could add those two numbers. So you have 0.43 plus 3 is 3.43 times 10 to the third, and you are finished because, again, it is in scientific notation. This is a number between 1 and 10, moving on to number 4. I try to subtract these, but I can't. This is a 13, this is a 12. I am going to add 1 to make that a 13. So I made this larger, I have to make this smaller. To make this smaller, I move this over once. So that's 0.332. But before I do that, I am going to copy down 6.67 times 10 to the 13th power. Put my parentheses around, subtract, and since I move this, it is 0.332. And now it is times 10 to the 13th, and that's what I wanted, because the exponents, when you add and subtract in scientific notation, the exponents must be the same. So now you could go and you could take your calculator and you could take 6, or you could do it by hand, 6.67 minus 0.332. Okay, so you're taking this number, yeah, and subtracting it and getting 6.338. And yes, that number again is a number between 1 and 10. That number is good for scientific notation. That's it. That's your answer. 6.338 times 10 to the 13th. Moving down to number 5, again, we're going to look to do 8.2 plus 7.1. We can't. This is a negative 5, and this is a negative 3. I have two options here. I could either take, well, you have two options every time. You could either take the negative 5 and bring it down to bring it up to a negative 3, or you could bring this, make this a negative 3. You can make it, try to make it a negative 5. I am going to make the negative 5 a negative 3. So to do that, I need to add 2 to negative 5. Adding 2, I made that larger. I have to make this smaller, and it has to be by 2, or moving the decimal over 2 places. So to move this decimal over 2 places, now it becomes 0.082. So I'm going to rewrite that before I get confused. 0.082. Remember, I moved it from, it was 8.2, and now I moved it 2 places over to the left, and I made it 0.082. And just be careful here. When you do negative 5 plus 2, it is a negative 3, and that's what you really wanted. And remember, you made it larger because you added 2 to it. The other scientific notation that is in this problem is 7.1 times 10 to the negative 3. You don't do anything to that because, again, you already made the -5 on the left-hand side a -3. And since these are both -3s, now you could add these numbers here. So again, you take your calculator, you do 7.1 in the calculator plus 0.082. And you get 7.182. Not that bad. Again, because that's going to be a number between 1 and 10. And you don't have to do any further work here. And that's the final answer. Number between 1 and 10, negative exponent, leave it, it's fine. Here we go, 10 to the 12th and 10 to the 14th. I'm going to make this, I'm going to add 2 to it. So I'm going to make that larger, and when I add 2, it's going to match that 14. Since I made that larger, I have to make this smaller, and it has to be smaller by 2. So again, I'm going to move this decimal 1 and 2 times. So it's going to be 0.05. Since it's 0.05, and I moved it twice, I made this side larger, this exponent is now to the 14th power. So, put the parentheses around. It becomes a plus. You bring this down to the 14th power again, and now you notice that the powers are equal to each other, and that means you could add 3 and 0.05. No calculator needed. 3 plus 0.05 is 3.05. And again, a number between 1 and 10 to start that off. No further work needed. So, sorry I'm writing like this because it's hard to do on a touchpad. You have 3.05 times 10 to the 14th. And that's how you add and subtract in scientific notation.